You've probably seen this car on Malaysian roads recently. In 2024, Proton launched the Proton E-Mas 7, the national carmaker's first electric vehicle. It was presented as a major step toward Malaysia entering the EV era and building its own electric car industry. But here's the real question. Is Malaysia building a true EV industry or just importing the future? First, what is Malaysia actually planning? Under the National Energy Transition Roadmap, the government wants EVs to make up 15% of vehicle sales by 2030, 50% by 2040, and 80% by 2050. Investment, Trade and Industry Minister Tengku Zafrul Abdul Aziz has said EVs are part of Malaysia's push into high-value green industries. To make that happen, the government introduced incentives. Imported EVs currently get tax exemptions, EV owners get road tax exemptions, and there are tax reliefs for installing home chargers. On paper, the plan looks simple. Electrify transport, cut emissions, and build a new industry. But the reality is more complicated. Take the Proton E-Mas 7, for example. It carries the Proton badge. But the platform and core technology come from Geely, the Chinese company that owns a 49.9% stake in Proton. That means key EV components like batteries, electronics, and power systems are still largely produced overseas. And those parts are expensive. EV batteries alone can make up 30 to 40% of a car's cost. They rely on minerals like lithium, nickel, and cobalt, sourced from countries like Australia, Indonesia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. So even a local EV is still deeply tied to global supply chains. Now let's break down why Malaysia is pushing EVs. First, the opportunity. Malaysia already has a strong electronics and semiconductor industry, especially in Penang and Kedah. EVs rely heavily on electronics like power chips and battery management systems. If Malaysia moves fast, it could position itself as part of the global EV supply chain and create high-skilled jobs. But here's the challenge. Countries like Thailand and Indonesia moved earlier and invested heavily in EV ecosystems, especially battery production. Malaysia is entering the race later and competing for the same investments. Second, infrastructure. Electric vehicles need charging networks. Malaysia wants 10,000 chargers by 2025, but building them requires billions in investment from both the government and private companies. And incentives also cost money. Tax breaks and subsidies help EV adoption, but they also reduce government revenue. In simple terms, taxpayers help fund the transition. And critics argue many EV buyers today are still higher income households. Third, affordability. Even with incentives, most EVs in Malaysia still cost above 100,000. That puts them out of reach for many Malaysians. Proton's E-Mas series aims to eventually make EVs more affordable. But mass adoption will only happen if prices drop and charging infrastructure expands beyond major cities. Fourth, the emissions question. EVs don't produce tailpipe emissions, but they still depend on electricity. And Malaysia's power grid still relies heavily on natural gas and coal. So unless renewable energy grows at the same time, EVs may simply shift emissions from roads to power plants. In other words, electric vehicles alone don't automatically solve the climate problem. At its core, Malaysia's EV push is about more than just cars. It's about industrial policy, energy transition, and economic competition. If it works, Malaysia could build a new green technology sector and strengthen its role in global manufacturing. But if the ecosystem isn't built properly, EVs could become an expensive transition that benefits only a small segment of the population. Malaysia's EV journey has begun. The real question now is whether it becomes an industrial breakthrough or just an imported future. Stay informed and follow NewsEns for more updates.